Hey there. Before we step inside tonight, let's make sure you're settled in. Really settled. Adjust those pillows behind your head. Maybe fluff them up. Maybe push one aside. Whatever feels most comfortable. Pull that blanket up to exactly where it feels right. If you got a fan or some gentle background noise, perfect. We're going to spend the next hour or so together, and I want you as cozy as someone tucked into a corner of a medieval cottage on a quiet evening. I always love knowing where you all are in the world. Drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. It's amazing to think of us scattered across continents and time zones, but all gathered here like family around the same hearth. And if these videos help you relax or sleep, a quick like or subscribe really does help. It keeps this little corner of history alive. Now, let me ask you something. When was the last time you spent an entire day inside a single room? Not because you were sick, not because you were stuck somewhere, but because that one room was your entire world. For a medieval peasant family, that single room was everything. It was where you woke, where you worked, where you ate, where you played, where you slept. It was where children were born and where the elderly died. It was, quite literally, your whole world for most of your life. Tonight, we're going to spend a complete day inside a medieval cottage, not rushing through it, not summarizing it, actually experiencing it hour by hour, from the moment the first person wakes in the pre-dawn darkness until the last person falls asleep by the dying fire. So take a deep breath, let it out slowly, and step with me through the low doorway of a medieval cottage into a world that's both impossibly foreign and strangely intimate. It's early March, 1365. We're in a village called Thornbury in Gloucestershire. The cottage belongs to a family named Webb. 8 people live here in a single room. 18 feet by 22 feet. 400 square feet total. It's still dark. Completely dark. The cottage has no light except the faint glow from the banked fire. Coals covered with ash, barely visible, but alive. Henry wakes first. He always does. Some internal clock pulls him from sleep, while everyone else is still lost in dreams. He lies still for a moment, listening to the breathing around him. Isabel beside him, baby Catherine in a cradle, the children on their pallets, Marjorie in a corner, everyone asleep. Henry carefully slides out from under the blankets. His feet find the floor, cold even with the rushes. He navigates by memory in the darkness toward the hearth. This is the morning ritual, the most important task of the day, waking the fire. He kneels at the hearth and begins carefully scraping away the ash that covered the coals last night. His hands move with practiced certainty in the darkness. He doesn't need to see. Beneath the grey ash, embers reveal themselves, still orange, still glowing, still alive. The fire is life. The fire is warmth. The fire must survive. Isabel begins preparing breakfast, adding water to the pot that hangs over the fire, measuring out oats for porridge. Henry tends the fire, making sure it's burning steadily. The light from the fire grows brighter. The room is no longer dark, though it's still dim. The central space around the hearth is illuminated, warm, alive. Baby Catherine wakes, not crying, just stirring in her cradle, making soft baby sounds. Isabel goes to her, picks her up, settles into the chair near the fire to nurse. This is the only chair in the cottage, a luxury that Henry made himself. The nursing is quiet, intimate. Catherine's small hand rests against Isabel's chest. Her eyes are half closed, still drowsy, content. This is one of the few moments of the day when Isabel can simply sit, simply be, without 10 other tasks demanding her attention. He adds a small handful of kindling, dry twigs, wood shavings saved from his carpentry work. The kindling catches almost immediately, small flames springing up, growing, spreading light across the hearth. He adds slightly larger sticks, then a small log. Within minutes the fire is properly awake, flames dancing, light filling the room. And with the light, the cottage emerges from darkness. The sleeping platform becomes visible, the table, the chest, the hanging bundles, the sleeping forms of his family. Home, revealed. Isabel stirs. She always wakes when Henry does. She sits up, wraps her shawl around her shoulders, and joins him at the hearth. "Morning," Henry says softly. "Morning," Isabel replies. "Cold night." "Not so bad. Fire held well." This brief exchange, the same words every morning, is their private ritual. Marjorie is the last to wake. She rises from her pallet in the corner, folds it, and tucks it away. During the day, the pallets are stored, rolled up and stacked. The floor space becomes working space, living space, play space. The room transforms with the time of day. By the time the sky outside is fully light, around 5:30, the family is gathered at the table for breakfast. 8 people around a table, meant for maybe 6. It's crowded. Elbows bump. Children squeeze together on the benches. But everyone fits, because everyone must fit. The porridge is ladled into wooden bowls. There's not quite enough bowls for everyone, so the youngest children share, taking turns with the spoon. Baby Catherine gets a bit of very soft porridge, mashed with milk, fed to her by Isabel, while she tries to eat her own breakfast. They eat quickly. There's work to do. Henry needs to get to a job. He's been hired to repair the roof supports in the church. Robert will go with him to learn and help. Breakfast takes maybe 10 minutes. Then the bowls are wiped clean and set aside. Henry goes to the door and opens it, the heavy oak swinging inward with a creak. Grey pre-dawn light spills in. Not sunrise yet, but the darkness is thinning. You can see the shapes of other cottages, the church tower, the bare trees beyond the village. The world is waking. Cold air rushes into the cottage. March mornings are cold. Henry steps outside briefly to check the weather. Clear sky, no rain, a good day for work. He returns inside, closes the door against the cold, and begins his morning tasks. Tools to check, wood to bring in. The donkey needs checking. Life in a cottage means constant small tasks, constant maintenance. By the time he returns, the other children are beginning to wake. Robert first. At 13, he's old enough to wake early. Then Emma. Young Henry will sleep until he's physically roused. The cottage is coming to life. The fire burns bright. The porridge begins to bubble. People move around the small space, each knowing where to go, how to share the limited space without collision. Henry and Robert gather tools, a saw, a hammer, chisels, a measuring cord, and prepare to leave. "I'll be back at midday for dinner," Henry tells Isabel. She nods. "I'll have something ready." They leave, and the cottage is suddenly quieter, less crowded. 6 people instead of 8. The space feels larger, though it's exactly the same size. Now Isabel's day truly begins. The day of managing a household, of keeping 8 people fed and clothed and cared for, all within this one room. First, cleaning. The rushes on the floor need refreshing. Isabel and Emma gather them up. They're dirty now, compressed, mixed with crumbs and spills, and tracked in dirt. They carry armfuls outside and scatter them on the midden heap, the garbage pile behind the cottage. Then they bring in fresh rushes, spreading them evenly across the packed earth floor. The fresh rushes smell clean, green. They rustle softly underfoot. This simple act, changing the floor covering, makes the cottage feel renewed, fresher, more cared for. Next, the bedding. The blankets on the sleeping platform are pulled off, shaken out the door, then spread back on the platform to air. The straw mattress is fluffed, turned. The children's pallets are checked. One has a tear that needs mending. Another needs more straw. Marjorie is already spinning by the fire. This is her primary contribution to the household, spinning wool into thread. She's good at it, her hands practiced from years of work. The drop spindle rotates smoothly, the wool drawing out into even thread. She works steadily, without hurry, knowing she'll spin for hours today, just as she did yesterday, just as she will tomorrow. Emma is learning to spin as well. She sits near her aunt, her own small spindle in hand, trying to match Marjorie's smooth motions. Her thread is lumpy, uneven, but she's learning. In a few years, she'll be as skilled as her aunt. Young Henry is given a task, sorting dried beans. There's a basket of beans that need checking, good beans, separated from damaged or mouldy ones. It's simple work, appropriate for a 6-year-old, but genuinely useful. He sits on the floor near the fire, picking through the beans with careful concentration. Baby Catherine is in her cradle near the fire, playing with a small cloth bowl Isabel made for her. She babbles to herself, occasionally throwing the ball and laughing when it rolls away. The morning passes in work. Isabel moves between tasks constantly. She's making bread today, not baking it, that will be done in the village's communal oven tomorrow, but mixing the dough, kneading it, setting it to rise. She's also preparing dinner, the main meal of the day. And she's mending clothes. There's always mending. And she's watching Catherine. And she's teaching Emma. And she's managing the fire. This is the reality of medieval housework. It's constant, overlapping, never-ending work. The fire always needs tending. The baby always needs watching. The food always needs preparing. The clothes always need mending. The work never stops. It just shifts from one task to another, all day, every day. The cottage is busy but not chaotic. Everyone knows their role. Everyone has their space. Emma works at the table. Marjorie spins by the fire. Young Henry sorts beans on the floor. Isabel moves between stations. The table for bread making, the hearth for cooking, the chest for retrieving items, the door for trips outside. The room serves every function: workspace, kitchen, living room, nursery. The same 400 square feet, adapting to whatever is needed at any given moment. The cottage is filled with the sounds of life, the crackle of the fire, the soft thump of the spindle, the rustle of fabric being mended, Isabel's voice as she sings, Catherine's babbling, sounds layering together, creating the atmosphere of home. Around mid-morning, a neighbor stops by. This is common. The cottage door is often open during the day, and neighbors drop in to borrow items, share news, or just visit briefly. Today, it's Agnes from 2 cottages over, wondering if Isabel has any spare thread she could borrow. Her spinning wheel broke and won't be repaired until tomorrow. Isabel checks her supply. She has some thread, enough to spare a bit. Marjorie stops spinning long enough to find the right spool and hand it to Agnes. The women chat briefly about the weather, about whose children are sick, about the upcoming holy day. 5 minutes of conversation, of connection, of community maintained. Agnes leaves, and the work continues. The bread dough has risen. Isabel punches it down, shapes it into loaves, covers them with cloth to rise again. The pottage for dinner is simmering over the fire, needing occasional stirring. This is work done in community, even when alone. Marjorie and Emma spin together, their conversation occasional but companionable. Isabel and young Henry interact as she works. She asks him about the beans. He shows her which ones are good. She praises his careful sorting. Outside, the morning advances toward midday. The light through the window brightens, shifts angle. Time passes not by the clock, there is no clock, but by the movement of light, the completion of tasks, the rhythm of work. By 11:30, Isabel begins preparing for Henry and Robert's return. The pottage is ready. The table needs clearing of the work items, bread dough, mending basket, sorted beans, and setting for eating. Bowls and spoons need arranging. The cottage transforms again. Workspace becomes dining room. Everyone helps. Emma clears the table. Marjorie moves her spinning aside. Young Henry carefully carries his sorted beans to the storage area. Within 10 minutes, the room has shifted function, ready for the midday meal. Henry and Robert return, bringing with them the smell of outside. Fresh air, sawdust, the particular scent of church stone. They wash hands and faces in a bucket of water outside, then enter, ready to eat. The family gathers around the table. 8 people again, crowded but familiar for the crowding. This is how meals happen. This is normal. Isabel ladles pottage into bowls. Today's version has barley, dried peas, onions, some wild garlic Emma gathered yesterday, and a bit of salt pork for flavor. There's bread from yesterday, dark rye, dense and filling. There's weak ale for drinking. They eat with real hunger. Conversation happens naturally. Henry talks about the church roof. The damage is worse than expected. Robert mentions seeing the blacksmith's apprentice. Emma reports that the chickens laid 7 eggs this morning. Small news, daily news, the fabric of ordinary life. Young Henry asks if he can go outside after dinner to play with the neighbor boys. Isabel considers. Has he finished his tasks? He has. She nods permission. The meal takes perhaps 20 minutes. Not rushed, but not lingered over. When everyone has eaten their fill, the bowls are set aside. The adults don't immediately return to work. There's a brief period of rest, a pause in the day's demands. Henry sits on the bench, back against the wall, eyes half closed. The morning's work was physical. His arms ache pleasantly. This rest is earned. Robert sprawls on the floor near the fire. At 13, he's still growing, and growth takes energy. He's constantly hungry, constantly tired. Marjorie and Emma clear the meal's remnants quietly, efficiently. Women's work continues, even during rest time. Young Henry has gone outside to play. Through the open door, you can hear children's voices, running, laughing, playing some game. The sounds of childhood, universal across centuries. The cottage is quieter now. Rest for the fire burns low. Light comes through the window and the open door, illuminating dust motes floating in the air. After perhaps half an hour, Henry stirs. Should get back, he says. A bit longer, Isabel says. She's tired. Genuinely tired. She needs this rest. But eventually, rest ends. The afternoon stretches ahead. Henry and Robert gather their tools again. Back by evening, Henry says. I'll have supper ready, Isabel replies. They leave. The cottage is quieter again. The afternoon work begins. Isabel nurses Catherine again. The baby is fussy, needing comfort as much as food. Isabel sits in the chair and lets her body rest while the baby nurses. With Catherine settled, Isabel turns to the bread. The loaves have risen again. She shapes them finally, placing them in cloth-lined baskets. Tomorrow, she'll take them to the village oven for baking. For now, they're covered and set aside. Next, she needs to deal with the laundry. Not a full wash. That happens perhaps once a month. But today she's soaking the baby's soiled clothes in cold water with some lye soap, scrubbing them against a board, wringing them out. It's hard on the hands. The lye makes her skin red and raw. But clean clothes, or at least cleaner clothes, are necessary. She hangs the wet items on a rope strung across one corner of the cottage, near the fire where they'll dry. The damp fabric drips occasionally, so she places a cloth underneath. The cottage now has wet laundry hanging, adding moisture to the air, adding one more layer to the visual complexity of the space. Marjorie continues spinning. She's been at it for hours now, and she'll continue for hours more. The spindle turns, the thread grows, the work proceeds with patient inevitability. Emma is beside her, still learning, still working on her own lumpy thread. Young Henry is back inside now, his brief outdoor play finished. Isabel gives him a new task, gathering kindling from the woodpile outside and stacking it neatly near the hearth. He makes several trips, small arms full of twigs and small branches. It's light work, but useful. The kindling supply needs constant replenishing. Baby Catherine has been put down for a nap in her cradle. She fights sleep for a few minutes, fussing, but eventually surrenders. Her breathing deepens. She's out, with the baby asleep. Isabel turns to her next task, preparing vegetables for tomorrow. She has onions that need trimming and hanging, leeks that need cleaning, some early spring greens that need sorting. She works at the table, her hands moving quickly and efficiently. She thinks about the garden. It's March, time to start preparing for spring planting. She thinks about Catherine. The baby is healthy, thriving. This is a relief. 2 of Isabel's children died young. You never stop fearing the sickness will take another. She thinks about Robert, 13 and nearly a man. Soon he'll need to start thinking about his future. Her hands work while her mind wanders. This is the rhythm of domestic labor, repetitive physical work that occupies the hands but leaves the mind free. Around mid-afternoon, the cottage door opens, and a figure enters, the village priest, Father Benedict. This is unexpected. Visits from the priest are rare outside of emergencies or special occasions. Isabel immediately stops her work, stands, wipes her hands on her apron. "Father," she says, respectful but uncertain. "Isabel," the priest nods. "Is Henry home?" "No, Father. He's working at the church, the roof repairs. Ah, yes, I'd forgotten. Father Benedict looks around the cottage. His presence makes the room feel smaller, more crowded. Can I help with something? Isabel asks. I've come about the Easter tithe, the priest says. The collection is in 2 weeks. I'm visiting each household to remind them of their obligations. Isabel nods. She knows about the tithe. Everyone knows. We'll have it ready, Father, she says. Good, good. He pauses. You keep a tidy home, Isabel. Godly order reflects spiritual order. Thank you, Father. The visit lasts perhaps 5 minutes. The priest offers a brief blessing and leaves. The cottage feels larger again with his departure. But his visit has disrupted the afternoon's rhythm. Isabel feels unsettled. The reminder of the tithe, the awareness of being observed and judged, all of it has broken her concentration. She returns to her work, but finds her mind less willing to wander now. She's thinking about the tithe, about money, about obligations. Marjorie notices her mood. The tithe again? She asks softly. Always the tithe, Isabel replies. They work in companionable silence for a while. The spindle turns. The afternoon progresses. Around 4 o'clock, Isabel starts preparing the evening meal. This will be lighter than dinner. Maybe some bread and cheese. Maybe leftover pottage reheated. The goal is to fill stomachs before bed, not to provide a feast. The cottage's rhythm is predictable. Morning, waking, breakfast, heavy work. Midday, dinner and brief rest. Afternoon, more work, different tasks. Evening, lighter work, family time, preparation for bed. Night, sleep, darkness, the fire burning low. Everyone together in the small space. By 5 o'clock, the afternoon's work is winding down. The vegetables are prepared. The laundry is nearly dry. The spinning has produced another day's worth of thread. Everything that needed doing has been done, or at least progressed, as far as today allows. Catherine wakes from her nap, happy and refreshed. Isabel picks her up, holds her close, smells her baby smell, milk and clean skin, and something indefinably sweet. This moment of simple affection, of mother and child connection, is a small gift in the day's endless work. Emma has finished her spinning practice and is now helping her aunt with some mending. The two work side by side, needles flashing in the light from the window. Marjorie teaches as they work how to make stitches small and even, how to reinforce weak spots, how to patch efficiently. Skills passing from generation to generation. Outside, the light is beginning to change. The afternoon is advancing toward evening. Soon, Henry and Robert will return. The family will gather for supper. The day will shift into its final phase. Henry and Robert return as the light is fading. They're tired, but satisfied. The day's work went well. The church repairs are progressing. They wash quickly outside and enter the cottage, ready for supper. The family gathers around the table once more. 8 people, crowded, familiar. The meal is simple. Bread, cheese, some eggs scrambled in a pan over the fire, weak ale. It's eaten quickly. Everyone is tired. Conversation is minimal. After supper, the table is cleared and the evening truly begins. Isabel and Marjorie are both spinning. There's always more wool to spin. The spindles rotate in the firelight, catching and reflecting the orange glow. Their hands move in practiced rhythm. This is meditative work, allowing conversation or simply peaceful silence. Emma is learning to sew by firelight. Isabel has given her a piece of scrap cloth and thread, and she's practicing simple stitches. Her needle moves slowly, carefully. The light isn't great for close work, but you learn to adapt. Robert is carving as well, learning from his father. His project is simpler, a handle for a tool that broke. The two work side by side, occasionally Henry offering quiet instruction. Young Henry is playing quietly on the floor with some carved wooden animals, toys his father made over the years. His play is gentle, quiet. Loud play isn't appropriate in the evening. Everyone's tired. Quiet is valued. Baby Catherine is in Isabel's lap, drowsy and content. She'll be put to bed soon, but for now, she's simply being held. The cottage feels peaceful. Everyone is occupied, but not stressed. The day's major work is done. This is rest time, recovery time, the quiet hours before sleep. Occasionally someone speaks. Henry mentions that he saw the bailiff today. Marjorie tells a brief story about something that happened in the village. Emma asks her mother a question. Conversation emerges naturally, fades, emerges again. This is family time, medieval style, not planned activities or entertainment, just being together in the small space, each doing their own quiet work, connected by proximity and blood, and the simple fact of sharing this cottage, this fire, this life. Stories begin. Henry tells a story he heard at the church about a saint who converted an entire village through patience and kindness. Marjorie tells a story from her childhood about the time she and her brother tried to catch a pig. The children laugh. Isabel smiles. Emma asks for the story about the queen and the magical bird. Isabel tells it again now, her voice soft and rhythmic, and Emma listens with contentment. The story never gets old. The familiar is comforting. Around 7:30, Catherine is clearly ready for bed. Isabel takes her to the sleeping platform, lays her in the cradle, covers her with a small blanket. The baby's eyes close almost immediately. Young Henry is also fading. His play has slowed. His head nods occasionally. Isabel notices and makes the decision. Henry, time for bed. He doesn't protest much. He's too tired. Isabel helps him to his pallet, already laid out in its nighttime position. He lies down. She covers him with a blanket, and he's asleep within minutes. The cottage is quieter now, with 2 children sleeping. The remaining family members continue their evening work. The fire burns steadily. Time passes in comfortable, drowsy slowness. The fire is burning lower now. Henry adds 1 more log, but he's preparing to bank it soon. It's getting late. Perhaps 8:30. Time to start thinking about bed. Robert is obviously fighting sleep, his head drooping, jerking back up. "Robert, bed," Henry says. The boy nods and goes to his pallet without argument. He's asleep almost before he's fully horizontal. Emma follows shortly after. She's yawning constantly, her sewing forgotten in her lap. Isabel helps her to her pallet, tucks her in, and Emma surrenders to sleep with a soft sigh. Now it's just the adults. Henry, Isabel, and Marjorie. The cottage feels larger with most of the children asleep, more peaceful. The sleeping breathing creates a soft background sound. They continue their work for another 20 minutes or so, but slower now, less focused. They're winding down too, preparing for sleep. "Time to bank the fire," Henry finally says. He begins the evening ritual, positioning the coals, adding 1 final log, covering everything with ash. The fire dims dramatically. The room darkens. Now there's just a faint glow from beneath the ash, barely visible. The cottage is dark now, truly dark. The banked fire gives off almost no light. The window shutter is closed. The door is barred. There's no moon tonight. It's a new moon, the darkest time of the month. In this darkness, the family settles for sleep. Henry and Isabel on the sleeping platform. Catherine in her cradle beside them. Marjorie in her corner. The 4 older children on their pallets arranged around the room. For a few minutes, there's shifting, finding comfortable positions, pulling blankets higher, settling into the particular arrangement that each person has perfected over years. Then gradually, stillness. The movement stops. The breathing deepens, slows, synchronizes slightly. 8 people sleeping in 400 square feet. Marjorie goes to her pallet in the corner, preparing for bed. Isabel and Henry move toward the sleeping platform. The day is ending. The cottage is silent, except for breathing and the occasional creak of the timber frame settling. The temperature is dropping outside, but inside, the cottage holds warmth. The banked fire radiates faint heat. 8 bodies generate heat. The small space traps that warmth. It's not warm by modern standards, but it's warm enough. The darkness is complete, absolute. This is the darkness medieval people lived with every night. No street lights, no night lights, no glowing clocks. Just darkness, pure and total. Outside, the village sleeps. The world sleeps. In that darkness, the cottage exists as a space of sound and smell and tactile sensation rather than sight. You would know you were in the cottage by the smell. Wood smoke, wool, bread, human bodies, the particular scent of home. By the sounds, breathing, the soft rustle of straw, the creak of the building. By the feel, the packed earth floor, the wool blankets, the presence of other bodies nearby. The night passes, hours of sleep, deep sleep for most, lighter sleep for Isabel, who half listens always for Catherine. Occasional wakings to use the chamber pot. You navigate by memory and feel in the total darkness, brief disturbances that barely register. This is how they sleep, all together, all in one room, sharing space and warmth and breath. Privacy doesn't exist. Solitude doesn't exist. You are always with family, always aware of others, always part of the collective unit that is the household. Modern people would find this unbearable. The lack of privacy, the constant presence of others, the inability to retreat to a separate room. But medieval people didn't know anything different. This was normal. This was how life was lived, and there was comfort in it. The comfort of never being alone, of always having family nearby, of sharing warmth on cold nights, of hearing the breathing of those you love all around you, in the darkness. The night continues. The cottage sleeps, and in the darkness, the banked fire continues to breathe beneath its ash blanket, staying alive, waiting for morning, when the cycle will begin again. So there it is, one complete day inside a medieval cottage, from before dawn until deep night. 16 hours of waking life, all lived within 400 square feet. We've watched that single room serve every function a home needs to serve. Kitchen in the morning, workspace through the day, dining room at meals, living room in the evening, bedroom at night. All of it, all in one space. We've seen how 8 people shared that space without killing each other, how they developed rhythms and patterns, and unspoken rules about who goes where and when. How the room transformed throughout the day, pallets rolled up to create floor space, then rolled out for sleeping. Work cleared from the table to make room for eating. We've experienced how light shaped the day. Darkness meaning sleep. Dawn meaning waking. Firelight meaning evening activities. The rhythm of life governed by the sun and the fire. And we've felt the intimacy of that life, the constant presence of family, the shared work, the lack of privacy that modern people would find suffocating, but medieval people found normal, even comforting. There was no escaping your family in a medieval cottage, no retreating to your own room when you were angry or tired. You were always together, always visible to each other, always sharing the same air and the same small space. This created a different kind of family dynamic than we experience today. Closer, in some ways. You couldn't avoid each other, so you learned to coexist, to accommodate, to share. The cottage wasn't just a shelter, it was a complete world. For many medieval peasants, especially women and young children, the cottage and its immediate surroundings were essentially the entire universe. And within that small world, they created meaning. They raised children. They shared meals. They worked together. They told stories. They prayed. They laughed. They mourned. They lived entire lives, birth to death, all within spaces, not much larger than a modern bedroom. There's something profound about that. Something both limiting and strangely liberating. The simplicity of it. The focus on what matters. Food, warmth, family, work, rest. No clutter, no excess, no distractions. Right now, you're lying in a space that's probably larger than that entire medieval cottage. You have multiple rooms. You have privacy. You have space. You have the luxury of being alone when you want to be alone. That's a gift, a genuine gift that medieval people couldn't imagine. But maybe there's also something we've lost. That intensity of family connection, that absolute interdependence, that sense of home as a complete world rather than just a place to sleep between activities happening elsewhere. The medieval cottage, for all its limitations, was truly a home, not just a house, but a living, breathing center of family life. The hearth wasn't just a fireplace. It was the literal and metaphorical heart of existence. The table wasn't just furniture. It was where life happened. Everything mattered in that small space. Every object had purpose. Every inch was used. Nothing was wasted, because nothing could be wasted. The cottage demanded efficiency, creativity, constant care, and in return, it provided shelter, warmth, and a sense of belonging that modern houses, however large, sometimes struggle to create. So rest easy tonight in your spacious, private, comfortable space. Appreciate it. Be grateful for it. But maybe also appreciate what that medieval family had. The closeness, the shared work, the simple certainty of knowing exactly where you belonged and who you belonged with. The fire glows beneath its ash. The family sleeps in the darkness. The cottage holds them all, as it has for years, as it will for years to come, until tomorrow, when the cycle begins again. When Henry wakes first and rekindles the fire, when the cottage comes alive once more, when that single room serves all the functions of home for another day. Sleep well, rest deeply, let the darkness hold you gently. The medieval cottage sleeps, and so can you. Good night.